Acer's Triton is more than just another 14-inch laptop with epic battery life and a beautiful OLED screen. The Triton has a few tricks up its sleeve, including a touchscreen, a haptic touchpad with Stylus support, and the whole thing is powered by a tiny Type-C charger. But a smaller and thinner laptop means compromises. So let's find out if the Triton 14 is worth it in this review. The Triton 14 has a CNC aluminum chassis, so it's all metal, except for the front touchpad area, which is glass. Build quality feels great. This is definitely a premium laptop, with only minor flex when going out of your way to push hard. The finish does a good job of hiding fingerprints, and they're easy to clean with a microfiber cloth. There's an RGB Predator logo on the lid, and a smaller one just below the keyboard on the right. There's nowhere on the front for getting your finger into, and I found it difficult to open up and actually quite annoying. I had to try to force my fingernail into the gap below the lid, and it was just more awkward compared to other laptops. I didn't notice any problems with the hinges, even when pushing the screen back too far and ripping the lid open way too fast. The lid wobbles a bit if you move or bump the laptop, but it felt sturdier than the G14, and it doesn't wobble when typing. The Triton is extremely portable, making it a great travel companion. It's one of the thinnest 14-inch laptops we've ever tested, only beaten by Razer's thinner Blade 14. The laptop by itself weighs in at 3.5 pounds or 1.6 kilos, only increasing slightly to 4.5 pounds or 2 kilos with the charger included. And that's because the Triton is powered by a smaller 140 watt Type-C charger. I've only seen this in HP's Omen Transcend 14, where the compromise of more portability was lower performance. But spoiler, that's not so much the case with the Triton. It's not the lightest 14-inch laptop we've tested, but it's close. Asus's Zephyrus G14 basically weighs the same, despite its more powerful GPU, while Razer's Blade 14 is also very close. Those other two laptops get heavier with the chargers included, as the Triton's smaller 140 watt Type-C charger just weighs less. My Triton is powered by Intel's Core Ultradyne 288V Lunar Lake processor, Nvidia's RTX 5070 graphics, 32 gigs of RAM, and a 14.5-inch OLED touchscreen. You can check out different configurations and prices with the link below, and if it has a good sale, we'll list it on our gaminglaptop.deals website so you can save money. The keyboard has per-key RGB backlighting, and all keys and secondary functions get lit up. Acer calls them mini LED keys, and the key lighting was noticeably brighter than most other laptops. Key brightness can be adjusted between 4 levels or turned off with the F11 and F12 shortcuts, but this doesn't affect any of the other lighting. If you want to change any of the effects, you'll have to dive into the Pulsar lighting tab of Acer's Predator software, which is the control panel for the laptop. There are 16 different lighting effects, and you can customize speed and color for the keyboard, lid logo, and wrist rest area logo all together. Or you can also go into the area section to control these 3 different areas individually. The keyboard has 1.5mm of key travel and feels nice to type with, but it doesn't feel as tactile as the G14 or Blade 14. I liked that at least the left and right arrow keys weren't tiny like many other 14-inch laptops. The power button is next to delete and backspace, but you have to press it for slightly longer than an accidental click to put the laptop to sleep, though you can disable that behavior in Windows. The seamless Gorilla Glass haptic touchpad is super smooth and feels nice to use, but personally, I prefer a traditional touchpad that actually clicks down. Don't get me wrong, the Triton's haptic touchpad works way better than the garbage one in MSI's Titan 18, but I still had some cases where dragging files around in Windows failed to unclick, while my partner noted that sometimes taps didn't register and she would have to trigger the click by pushing harder. There are 2 white light strips on the left and right of the touchpad so you can see where it is, and they have an extremely subtle texture so you can feel the edge too. You can use the software to turn the touchpad lights off or only have the have them turn on from a finger, stylus, or both. The touchpad supports Microsoft Pen Protocol 2.5, and the included stylus worked on the touchpad out of the box with 4096 pressure sensitivity levels, but it doesn't work on the touchscreen, which is for fingers only. Port selection is basic, but gets the job done. There's a Type A and Type C port on either side of the laptop, but keep in mind the 140 watt charger eats up one of the Type C ports. You do at least get to decide which side you charge it from, but only the right side offers Thunderbolt, so if you need that, then you're limited to charging from the left. The display outputs offer a fair mix for connecting to discrete or integrated graphics. Connecting to the DGPU gives better performance in games and VR, but connecting to the iGPU for lighter tasks means quieter fans. Getting inside requires removing 11 TR6 screws of 2 different lengths. The 4 down the front are shorter than the rest. I found it easy enough to open with pry tools. I'll leave a link to these ones I use below. Once inside, we've got the battery down the front, single M.2 storage slot just above on the right, and Wi-Fi 7 card on the left. Wi-Fi performance was great, and similar to most other Intel/killer Wi-Fi 7 cards, and notably better compared to other 14-inch models tested so far. Speeds from the installed 1TB PCIe Gen 4 SSD were decent, but the MicroSD card slot is slow, as my V90 rated card can do 10 times these sequential speeds in other laptops. The card clicks in and sits the full way into the laptop, so no chance of bumping it, but you need fingernails to get it in and out. RAM is on board and can never be upgraded, and Acer offers the Triton with 32 gigs, so you'll have to look elsewhere if you want more total capacity. But at least a benefit of this is its faster LPDDR5X 8533. The upgrade score is on the lower side, and it's one of the least upgradable 14-inch laptops tested. The only positive I can mention is at least the single M.2 storage slot can fit drives with chips on both sides. There are speakers on the sides and underneath on the sides closer to the front. They sound alright with some bass, but a bit muffled and not as clear as I'd like. The Latencymon results were good in our 5-minute idle test. The Triton plays this sound by default on boot. Fortunately, you can disable it in the Predator Sun software or BIOS, and it's cool that Acer lets you customize the boot screen image. No other brands give you that customization. The Triton 14 is powered by a 4-cell 76 Wh battery. Display power saver is enabled by default, which automatically lowers the screen's refresh rate to 60 Hz when you unplug the charger to save power. This is why the screen flashes black, and it goes back to 120 Hz when you plug back in. You can change the battery charge mode to limit the maximum charge level to 80%, which helps improve the longevity of the battery, as keeping it fully charged for extended periods can degrade it. Battery life was excellent, and the best result from a 14-inch laptop so far this year. It only lasted 10 minutes more than Asus's G14 in the YouTube video playback test, but the Triton lasted more than 50% longer with a game running. It only lost 13% of its battery charge while asleep for 24 hours. But this isn't a fair comparison with the other laptops, as it depends on the size of the laptop's battery. Here's how much battery power was lost on average per hour, which is a fair comparison, and it had one of the slower drain rates measured, though the AMD-based G14 and Blade 14 drained slower. Let's check out thermals next. The CPU and GPU are covered by a vapor chamber cooler with Acer's graphene thermal interface material. 2 metal fans bring air in through the holes on the bottom panel and through the keyboard, and exhaust it out of the back, so no hot air blows on your mouse hand. Acer's Predator Sun software allows us to change between different performance modes, which from lowest to highest are quiet, balanced, performance, and turbo. Turbo mode applies a 100 MHz overclock to the GPU core that can't be disabled. All modes except for quiet let you set the fans to auto, max, or customize the speed speed of either fan individually, but you don't get control of fan curves based on how hot things get like other laptops. You can also use the software to control the mode switch key. By default, it cycles through the different performance modes, but you can change it to only enable or disable turbo mode. This is the extra key above the keyboard on the left. It lights up so you can tell which mode you're in, but Acer is still using purple and pink for performance and turbo modes, which I find harder to tell apart at a glance. The internal temperatures were cool at idle. The rest of the results are from combined CPU and GPU stress tests, which aim to represent a worst-case full-load scenario. But these are all quite cool relative to most other laptops I test. It's only slightly warmer with the lid closed, with no performance loss, so no problem if you want to dock the laptop. Using a basic metal stand was able to drop temps by around 6 degrees Celsius, but the cooling pad I test with, linked below, seems pretty useless, given its maxed out fans can't even match the far cheaper and quieter stand. The CPU was locked in at around 27 watts regardless of the performance mode. Nvidia's control panel says the RTX 5070 can boost up to 110 watts with dynamic boost, which is only 5 watts away from being a full-powered 5070, but we saw it closer to 95 watts with the CPU loaded up at the same time. So it's not a full-powered 5070, but it's really not far off considering its small 140 watt charger. Despite the processor only getting 27 watts, the E-cores were maxed out at 3.7 GHz in all performance modes, while the P-cores still run at 4.1 GHz. Basically, the CPU just doesn't need much power to run well, as it's only got 4 P and 4 E-cores, and I think it makes sense to let the GPU use more power anyway, especially for gaming, as it's got the higher 2880 by 1800 resolution screen. Here's how an actual game performs with the different performance modes in use. I've got Cyberpunk 2077 at ultra settings running at native in purple, and DLSS upscaling on balanced in red to boost performance. So we can hit 60 FPS in turbo mode with DLSS, which isn't bad considering the 2880 by 1800 panel. The CPU can use more power in a CPU-only workload like Cinebench, where the GPU is idle, but Intel's 288V maxes out at just 37 watts. So we get pretty much the same performance regardless of the performance mode in use. The only thing that really changes is the amount of fan noise. There's only so much multi-core performance an 8-core processor gets us. But hey, I suppose it's ahead of a 16-core 22-thread processor in Asus's ZenBook from last year. The single-core performance is similar to much more powerful options in bigger laptops, so the Triton is still able to offer a snappy experience, as long as you're not doing a bunch of heavy tasks at once. Performance lowers if we unplug the charger and run on battery power. I suppose it's not the worst 14-inch laptop tested, but other similarly sized options with AMD processors are able to do a fair bit better. As for keyboard temps, most laptops I test are in the low 30 degrees Celsius range on the keyboard at idle, and the Triton was in line with this and felt cool. It gets a fair bit warmer with the stress test running in the lowest quiet mode. The rest feels a little warm, and the middle's warm too, but not uncomfortable. It's a little cooler in balanced mode, as the fans run faster and louder to help compensate for the extra power and heat. Stepping up again to performance mode was a bit warmer, but the areas where you rest your hands still feel cool. Only right up the back above the keyboard feels hot, but you don't need to touch there. The highest turbo mode was similar, perhaps just a touch cooler, and it's good to see the screen isn't getting blasted with the hot air exhaust like some other laptops. The keyboard hotspot was on the warmer side when compared to all laptops, but it's actually a decent result relative to other 14-inch laptops. Smaller laptops just have less space for cooling, so higher temps are usually expected in exchange for good performance. But the trade-off is the Triton's louder fans. Let's have a listen. I could only just hear the fans when idling in quiet mode with my ear close to the laptop, and turbo mode was the same with the fans on auto or max in this workload. Although using the stand lowered temps, unfortunately it didn't end up running the fans any quieter. Turbo mode is quite loud, and similar to many far more powerful 16 and 18-inch gaming laptops. The Triton's perceived loudness is around 40% above Asus's G14 and Blade 14. So yeah, the Triton gets loud. Of course, you don't have to use turbo mode. Performance mode is significantly quieter, and still offers decent performance in a workload where the GPU is active, like gaming. Turbo mode clearly performs better, but you definitely want noise-cancelling headphones. Alright, screen next. The Triton has a 14.5-inch OLED touchscreen with a resolution higher than most other 16x10 panels, so it'll need more GPU power to run games at its native resolution despite being a smaller screen. The screen looks good, and we get the usual benefits from OLED, including excellent color gamut, perfect contrast, and no backlight bleed. We measured brightness at 500 nits with HDR on, as shown by the red bar, but in SDR mode we found brightness to max out at 90% with no change at 100%. Acer specified the screen as a 340 nit panel, so our Triton may have just got lucky in the panel lottery. It's one of the dimmer OLED panels tested in SDR mode, but it's decent in HDR mode. I'm wondering if the lower brightness is due to the touchscreen. It's hard to see on camera, but in person, if you look closely at the screen, you can see what I assume is the additional layer for touch functionality. Anyway, the touchscreen works fine, but it doesn't work with the stylus, only with your fingers. OLED panels can suffer from burn-in in the long term, but Acer has a number of OLED care options in the Predator Sun software to help reduce the risk. PWM flickering is present, which can give some people a headache after long use, and the glossy screen is something to be aware of, as it's reflective and can be annoying if you're working in a bright environment. Screen response time is excellent, with most transitions occurring in less than a millisecond. It's slightly slower compared to the other OLED panels tested, but the difference is so small it really doesn't matter, and it's still significantly faster compared to all the non-OLED options. The total system latency was better than I expected. This is the time between a mouse click and when a gunshot fire shows up on screen in Counter-Strike 2, and it's the fastest 14-inch laptop we've ever tested, coming in slightly faster than the more powerful G14 and Blade 14. But the Triton does not have advanced Optimus, so you can't quickly turn Optimus off to get an FPS boost in games. It still has a traditional mux switch available in software and BIOS. It just means you have to reboot to swap. There's no G-Sync when Optimus is off, and there's no adaptive sync with Optimus on, so screen tearing in games is possible regardless of which mode you're playing in. There's a 1080p camera above the screen in the middle. It has IR for Windows Hello Face Unlock, and here's how it sounds while typing on the keyboard. Alright, let's see what the Triton 14 can do in games. We've tested it with these settings. Cyberpunk 2077 was still running well at 1080p ultra settings at over 90 FPS, though it is the worst result from an RTX 5070 laptop so far. Granted, it is also the lightest 5070 laptop here too. It's still able to run at 60 FPS at 1440p, even without using upscaling features like DLSS, so definitely not bad considering much bigger full-powered 5070 laptops are only reaching a 10% higher frame rate. Black Myth Wukong was running above 60 FPS at 1080p high settings, and it's similar to the lower-powered 5070 in gigabytes larger X16. Razer's thinner but heavier Blade 14 was 8% faster as it runs its 5070 with more power, and the Blade's lead lowers to 5% at 1440p. The Triton is still beating bigger 5060 laptops, and really, it's not that far behind most of the other 5070s tested. Alan Wake 2 was running well at 1080p max settings, at least here, because we did have it crash a few times while loading, and the first time we tested it, the frame rate was very poor. Not sure what the deal was there, but when it's working, again, it's one of the lower 5070s. Same deal at 1440p. The Triton is slightly ahead of Gigabyte's larger X16 as it runs its 5070 with less power, but even the better higher powered options are only a few frames faster. Relative to the other laptops tested, the Triton 14 sits in a similar position compared to the others, with ray tracing and DLSS upscaling enabled. Honestly, with this performance, you're probably better off dropping the RT and just using DLSS to get the FPS boost. I was concerned that the smaller 140W Type-C charger would result in poor gaming performance, because that's exactly what happened last year with HP's Omen Transcend 14. It had a 4070 GPU inside, but it often got beaten by 4060s and even a 4050 in some cases. But the Triton's 5070 is at least able to keep up with the rest of the 5070s, though it is on the lower end of that spectrum. And I'm guessing that this is because Nvidia's newer RTX 50 series is more power efficient. So now I'm wondering if the Omen 14 is actually better this year with the 5070, and we should be getting that soon, so get subscribed for that review. Now, the 8 gigs of VRAM from the RTX 5070 paired with that 2880 by 1800 screen is a concern, for all the reasons I covered in this video with Steve from Hardware Unboxed. Maybe it won't be a problem for you today, or even for a while, depending on the games you play and setting levels you use. But it's definitely something worth thinking about for an expensive laptop you're going to use for the next few years. Most of the 14-inch laptops currently available max out with the RTX 5070, and I'm guessing that's just because it's harder to pack in a more powerful GPU in a smaller space. But it can be done, and if you want more VRAM from the RTX 5070 Ti, then you'll want to check out Asus's G14 instead. Here are the 3D Mark results. Creator performance is a fair bit behind other 5070 laptops in Adobe Photoshop, likely due to the lower tier processor, but GPU performance in Blender is similar to what we saw in the games. Our DaVinci Resolve test kept timing out and did not complete, but the stylus and touchscreen support make this a good option for creators. I just wish the microSD card slot was faster. The BIOS looks fancy, but there's not actually much you can customize through here, so forget about shooting this laptop. Linux support was good, except the major problem of the touchpad not working. Given the stylus still worked, I'm wondering if there's some sort of conflict there. Pricing and availability will change over time, so check the links below the video for updates and to see if there are any current sales. If the Triton 14 has a good sale, we'll add it to the gaminglaptop.deals website. We update that every day to include all of the best sales, so make sure you check it out regularly to save money on your next gaming laptop with that link below. At the time of recording in late September, the only information I've been able to find is that the Triton will start from €29.99, but that's from the original press release back in May. And this thing is only just starting to come out now. So again, refer to that link below where hopefully there'll be updated pricing. So as expected, the Triton 14 is not cheap, which is what happens when you cram a lot of features into a smaller laptop. But is it even worth buying? Let's summarize the good and the bad to find out. Starting with the good, the Triton 14 has a premium metal and glass build which feels great. It's thin and light, and the compact 140W Type-C charger keeps it travel friendly without hurting gaming performance too much. It has the fastest click-to-screen action delay of any 14-inch we've tested. The OLED panel looks great, though SDR mode is a bit dimmer than other options, but it's also the only touchscreen option I'm aware of at this size with these specs. Battery life is excellent, the keyboard lighting pops, and the haptic touchpad is unique, but I think that comes down to personal preference. For me, it's a bit of a negative, but the Stylus support is great for creators. As for the bad, smaller laptop means upgrades are limited to Wi-Fi card and one M.2 storage slot, and solid RAM is limited to 32 gigs. The fans can get loud if you're loading it up in the highest turbo mode, though you can of course use the lower performance mode for quieter fans and still get decent performance. Ports are limited due to its size, the lid is annoyingly hard to open, and the flip side of the smaller 140W Type-C charger is less power compared to other similarly sized laptops, like the G14 or Blade 14, and there's no advanced Optimus or variable refresh rate for gamers. Granted, turning Optimus off matters less in since Microsoft's queso update. Bottom line, get the Triton 14 if you're after a premium, ultra-portable 14-inch laptop with epic battery life, a fast and color-accurate OLED touchscreen, and decent gaming and GPU performance, all things considered. If you're a creator after stylus and touchscreen support, this is one of the few options. But if you hate high fan noise under load, or after gaming features like G-Sync and advanced Optimus, or you'd prefer more performance at the expense of being just slightly heavier, with the option of more VRAM and RAM while sticking to the 14-inch size, then I'd suggest ASUS's Zephyrus G14 instead, which you can check out over there next. The G14 isn't perfect either, but it's a more gaming-focused device and a great option if gaming is your priority. I'll see you in that one next.